there's a very big, strong theory that we're always being hit over the head with, which is that the Dutch do it right, and the Americans ran with this model and they applied everything badly, and then the American model went everywhere. And I know your articles, your writing is kind of suggesting maybe the Dutch didn't do it so well, and I'd love your opinions on that, if you don't mind. And then there's another question I have after that.
Well, there's several stories of accounts of witnesses of patients that have been in that clinic that seem to indicate that they're being very cavalier there as well.
When American journalists or British journalists write a story about this, they phone Annelou de Vries, they phone Steensma, and they explain that they are very careful and that they have very intensive assessment of these children. But there is not one reporter who is actually doing research in the Netherlands, what happens in the clinics, what happens in these therapies, in the assessments. They always reduce it to the statements by de Vries. But de Vries will always say that they are doing a good job.
Do you think, because I'm very keen to know, because you've really studied the Dutch more on the ground, more than anybody, do you think the clinics, what looks like almost purposeful obfuscation of facts and purposeful kind of, changing scales and numbers, and it looks really purposeful, or is it messy and sloppy?
Well, it's a very good question. Just the other day there was Jillis Smits, a Dutch medical ethicist, pointed out in NRC in a small letter in reaction to the reaction of the gender clinic to our piece, that they quote their own research, but they quote the study 2 years prior to the final study, in which the conclusions were almost diametrically reversed. So they, after 2 years, they came to a different conclusion, a conclusion that didn't fit their frame at this point. Mm-hmm. So they're quoting the 2020 study. That is not an oversight.
Oh my God.
That cannot be an oversight because it's their own.
Yikes.
It's their own stuff.
Well, there's another element or another point that needs to be mentioned. That is that they have not published any data about patients, about sex ratio, about how many children are being treated with puberty blockers. We have no data after 2018. Except for the number of how many referrals they have. That's about 350 each year. But that's all we have. And that makes it very difficult to get a good picture of what is happening within the clinics, because we don't know how many children there are. We don't know how many children are getting puberty blockers. We don't know how many children are going to do something else.
I mean, they are not to be envied at all. I mean, they are in a terrible people. They've been doing this for 30 years now, almost. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden there's all this scrutiny.
Yeah.
And now, so I think with themselves, it's slowly sinking in. My God, what have we done? We have corrupted this protocol step by step, and we've compromised. And now people are taking notice, and there's going to be a moment that they're going to have to own up to all this, and that is, of course, I would be scared to death if I were in their
and
shoes,
I gather they are. I gather because I've spoken to detransitioners who've gone into them, and they sound like they're rattled in the Steensma and de Vries and the clinic. They're rattled.